Ooh, welcome to the Dad Code Podcast, where real dads come for real talk and no BS. We are your hosts, Blake Melton and Bradley Newberry. Good afternoon, Bradley.
Good afternoon. We want to welcome everyone into the next episode of DDS, Dads Discussing Sports. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about teams or a team that we remember growing up with and what stood out about the team.
Yeah.
Around the philosophy. I mean, one that I'm automatically thinking of because I don't necessarily watch this sport anymore. My mind goes straight to the Chicago Bulls for some reason.
I would agree with you on all fronts there. So, what was it? The early to mid 90s.
That's right.
That was the basketball team du jour, pretty much in the eastern half of the United States, I would say.
The Western may have been the Lakers.
Western could have been Lakers, could have been the Jazz at that time, too.
The mailman.
Mailman, John Stockton.
John Stockton.
A lot of good rivalries there. There were some good rivalries probably in the East with the Knicks.
Oh, they had the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
We had mid to later 90s Orlando Magic, a team that Blake and I watched with Anthony Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dennis Scott and others.
Yeah, but the Bulls really, that was what got me into basketball.
I mean, that's what I saw every Sunday afternoon after church at my grandmother Reba's house.
I mean, it was Michael Jordan, obviously, Scottie Pippen, Luke Longley,
Horace Grant.
What was it? Bill Weatherton or something like that.
Bill Winnington. That's it. Steve
Kerr, all those guys, man. It's like you knew everybody on the team. It felt like it was Dennis Rodman was there.
He was there for a little bit.
I remember specifically
Tony
Kukoc. Wow, one of the first.
B.J. Armstrong.
Golly, you're pulling up some names now, dude. I mean, I specifically remember staying up till 10:30 at night watching basketball games on WGN and all that because they're Chicago based. And dude, my mom would come in there and be like, "You're supposed to be asleep." I'm like, "Well, I had to see Michael Jordan make the winning shot or whatever." And that was really what got me into basketball. And like you, once the Jordan era ended, quote unquote, I kind of got to the point where I was like,
yeah.
No one really carried the torch, really, in my opinion.
Oh, there have been plenty of fine basketball athletes that have come since then. But just talking from personal experience, the sport itself didn't keep my attention as I got older.
No. Well, a lot of things changed. I don't feel like there was a point where they just stopped playing defense, I felt like. Where they were literally, if it was a fast break, everybody was like, a
little street ball, a little pickup, little pickup basketball?
I don't know. It just felt like, back when Jordan and Dumars and Isaiah Thomas were all out there. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's probably still going on, those kinds of rivalries, but it just felt like they weren't going to let the other one score one single point on them. It felt like they were absolutely going to try to dominate them. It felt like it to me. And again, I don't watch a lot of basketball now, so it may be this way again with the newer players that are up there, but it just felt like there was an intensity to the game that I just don't feel right now.
I mean, I believe some of the rule changes have taken the intensity away.
Yeah.
They would
a lot of flopping.
They would position it as a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we grew up in a time where physicality and that type of intensity was what we wanted to see, not only in basketball, but that's what kind of drew us into hockey. Mm-hmm. We wanted to see a fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Football, that's what transitioned us into that was boom, they're hitting.
Exactly.
Kaboom.
I mean, back in the day, I just felt like they were banging. I mean, they're probably banging now down low and everything, but I just felt like there were people that I felt like almost legitimately did not like each other.
Yeah.
And it was always just like a drama to see, a basketball drama, if you will, to see them play because you're like, I know they're out there talking trash to each other.
Well, we can't mention the Chicago Bulls without touching on their coach, Phil Jackson, and the triangle
offense.
Man, that was a big deal. They would talk about it all the time, and as youngsters, I hear the words, and they would try to diagram it. But
yeah,
what a thing! I mean, that's something that I'll always remember.
Yeah, I mean,
coach and his quote unquote triangle offense.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird because Phil Jackson was just as much of an icon on that team as everybody else, which I guess all great teams.
Rock star.
They have kind of that rock star coach, and Phil Jackson was definitely that guy. But yeah, that's my memory for basketball is always going to be the Chicago Bulls. I mean, it kind of for a brief period morphed into the Orlando Magic, but Shaquille O'Neal was kind of the big draw there.
Penny.
Yeah. Penny.
I remember
3D.
all of them. And thanks to those that created the video game NBA Live, I got to play with some of my favorite basketball stars.
Yep.
I was the Orlando Magic very often.
Yep.
And
NBA Jam. Remember
NBA
that
Jam,
one? Man, that was a good one.
He's heating up.
Oh, God. Terrible shot.
But other teams that we grew up with, what about the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s? I can't say that I was ever a fan.
I wasn't ever really a
a
fan.
all over my damn TVs.
Well, they still are. They still are. It's like the media just they
okay. So there's
America's team, quote unquote.
There was a reason why they were on my TV screen in the 90s because their team was actually good. I don't know why the hell they're on my screen now.
Dude,
They haven't won anything in decades at this point.
Yeah, my wife is a Cowboys fan. I'll put that as a disclaimer, but I get so tired of seeing them on TV just because, honestly, lately they've not been very good. They're just not. I mean, back in the day,
but it's a media circus.
It is
with Jerry Jones.
It is.
And the Star.
That's a good way
It's
to
a
describe
brand.
it. I mean, people are more there to look at the spectacle of the stadium that they've built. I mean, and it's kind of a shame when that's the big draw right now instead of what's happening on the field.
But yeah, I remember them. They would, with old Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith. I mean, they were running up and down the fields. They were beating the Buffalo Bills in Super Bowls. And
golly, that was back before concussions were really a concern on top of everybody's mind. So, I mean, I remember Troy Aikman getting concussed about every other game, it seemed like. But
knocked out. I mean, other teams that I remember growing up, obviously we've talked about it before, but I remember the Atlanta Braves, the New York Yankees in baseball. They were both iconic teams in the 90s.
Yeah, the Braves. That's really what I think about when I think of teams in the 90s is Sid Bream rounding third base, coming in. Would it have ever been the same if he was not so damn slow?
No. I remember exactly where I was.
Oh, yeah?
I was Mitchell Nelson. Was on a Mitchell Nelson trip at Land Between the Lakes when that game was happening. And me and my friends were watching that as it happened.
Wow.
As a Braves fan, I couldn't believe, that he even rounded third, much less ran all the way home.
To use the term lumbering, that is the definition of a person lumbering around third.
Does anyone out there remember who actually hit the ball, that put the ball in play?
Oh,
because he wasn't a regular starter.
No, he wasn't. I forgot his name. I can see him.
I've got the name.
I know you do, and I can't believe I can't remember.
He wasn't a regular. He usually a pinch hitter.
Was it Batista?
His name was Francisco
Cabrera. Dang it.
Poked it out to left field. I still don't know how Sid Bream took two bases.
I mean, guys, he was dragging his legs. I mean, it looked like he had 25-pound ankle weights around his ankles. And the slide was it was more like a controlled fall.
Yeah, it was a definite fall.
Yeah, I mean, the Braves were definitely the team of the 90s for me.
Don't forget the Yankees. I mean, they were the ones that everyone wanted to hate. I mean, you hated them or liked them. As Braves fans, you don't like them because they won World Series, where we had hoped that the Braves would win. But I mean, you can't not think about Steinbrenner,
Yep.
the Yankee icon. I
Yeah,
mean,
man.
we think about Don Mattingly.
Yep. Don Mattingly. Golly.
You fast forward a little bit, you think of Bernie Williams.
Bernie Williams, Mariano, Derek Jeter.
Gee. What about some Jorge Posada?
Yep. Jorge Posada, man. That's another one.
Jeez.
Joe Girardi. A lot of really good ones on that. David
Man.
Justice actually made it on that team a little
About
bit more in the
a
2000s.
Brave going there.
Yeah, I mean, dude, there was, and then you can't talk about the Yankees without mentioning Mariano Rivera.
And what about shortstop?
Number 2,
Number 2, Derek Jeter.
the Jeets, the Capitan.
I've got a quick question before we get too long-winded on this, but as a person that followed the Boston Red Sox, what are your thoughts about Alex Rodriguez? He was kind of all over the map with the Rangers.
So when he played for the
Yankees.
Rangers, I loved him. But I also didn't know much about him. And when he became a Yankee, I learned because I saw him play more, and I got to see a side of him that I didn't really care for that much. I felt like he was more kind of a dick. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's just competitive. He's always been competitive, and I just view it that way because I'm a Red Sox fan and he was a Yankee. But there's no denying his talent. I mean, first off, the guy's a freaking specimen. What is he, like 6'4", 6'5"? He was one of the, like Cal Ripken, he was one of the really tall shortstops to ever play when he played at Texas. And him making the transition to third base, I would be lying if I was saying I was rooting against him being able to make the transition. But, I mean, the guy could absolutely stroke as far as hitting goes. I mean, golly. And, but, yeah, he actually got in some battles, both physical and, just in the game.
Some verbal
Some
altercations.
verbal and fisticuffs on the fields with the Red Sox. So, yeah, A-Rod was he was one of those that, I loved his talent. He was actually pretty fun to watch and to try to emulate. But as far as him wearing that Yankee uniform, couldn't stand it.
I'll tell you one that I remember going to the batting cages with you when we were younger, that you would try to swing like this person going back to the Braves, the old crime dog.
crime dog, the cape swing,
McGriff.
the cape swing, the whoosh. So,
Man,
yeah.
but those are little things that set someone apart as unique. And Fred McGriff with that swing had it perfected.
Yeah, he did.
He was
And
very underrated, actually.
he actually was. I mean, and dude, he was the consummate professional. You never heard a word out of him. He went out there, he did his job, did it well, retired gracefully.
Mm-hmm.
He knew when to call it quits. He didn't have any aspirations of playing, too long. He's a very productive player. He was a great one for everybody to look up to whenever they were that age.
Yeah, and I grew up pitching a lot, so I had a kind of eye at Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz.
What a great
what in the-
pitching staff.
What in the world were they doing in Atlanta with all that?
I don't know. I mean, Steve Avery,
Yeah.
and then they had Mark Wohlers closing. And then we won't talk about John
Old
Rucker.
Johnny Rocker.
But, I mean, that guy's a nutcase.
Hey, it's okay to have a little crazy in you when you're throwing 100 miles per hour.
little Greg McMichael throwing from down here. Oh, man, there was a lot of – that was a pitching staff. How could they not expect to win with that kind of pitching staff?
I'm just glad they got one World Series, so I didn't have to talk about them like the Buffalo Bills, the team that always got there but could never finish it.
Yeah, I mean, they made a lot of questionable front office decisions as the years went on, but, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to really understand the business side of baseball, but salary caps and such. But as far as I'm concerned, that is the team of the 90s for me in sports, just being a baseball nut in general. I mean, Golly.
But
They had the pitching staff. They had they had star power, in my opinion. You know, you mentioned David Justice.
marketability.
Oh my gosh,
remember,
Chipper Jones.
You remember them doing the commercial about Chicks Dig the Long Ball?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you remember those commercials?
When have baseball pitchers had TV spots for commercials? I mean, and honestly, two guys that were honestly not that flamboyant
No, they're
at
just
all. They're
goofy
kind of
guys.
they're actually kind of nerds.
They are goofy when Greg Maddox wearing his glasses. But thank you for letting us have a few minutes to share some of our memories of the 1990s and sports teams that made an impression upon us. This was another episode of DDS. Stay tuned. Tomorrow, we're bringing you a new episode of the Dad Code Presents Hey Dad.
Y'all be well.